All right, so let's talk about the big time conference tilt this Saturday between San Jose State versus Boise State. It's a big one, and Spartan fans all know this because it's the return of former Spartan guard Alvaro Cardenas. Cardenas on the team for 3 years, now a senior, transfers to Boise State. He's absolutely killing it with the Broncos now. He's the point guard that a lot of Boise State fans have been crying about that they've needed for the past couple of years, and he's excelling within his role. Not only is he scoring, but he's coming off like a 12-assist performance, to round out their non-conference play. And here we are. Of course, it's the first game, and Alvaro's back in San Jose. And I will say this, Jonathan, Spartan fans know this that have been keeping up with the men's hoop squad, and you and I both know this. This is now 2 years in a row. I'm not going to say San Jose State has the Boise State Broncos number, but it's a good matchup for them. It's a good matchup for them. And especially in San Jose, I'm not going to go as far as saying that, Boise, because their Extra Mile Arena is a different animal. But we always talk about that SJSU is the sleepy spot of the conference when teams travel on the road. And Boise has had 2 tough battles here now. We beat them outright 2 years ago. And here comes, that game was a 1-possession game with 5 minutes left, and Boise State ran up the score late last year. Here we go again. I think we all know the scouting report on these guys with Tyson Degenhardt and Omar Stanley, and obviously Tim Miles knows the scouting report with Alvaro Cardenas.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he knows it probably like in and out. At least that's what he would think. And it's going to be an emotional game too. I know for not even just for like Cardenas and maybe the Spartans, but like just the fan base. There's still some guys obviously lingering like Latrell Davis, Viola, who have actually played with Cardenas. So I'm imagining they're going to be, whether or not they say, it doesn't matter to them, like, obviously it's going to matter to them. I mean, he's going to be coming here. He's like a legend in a Spartan uniform. This guy was like one of the best assist playmakers in the country in a Spartan uniform.
And he's doing it again
literally.
this year.
Yeah, and now he's doing it, obviously with the quote-unquote bigger school here with Boise State. So I think a lot of things are on the line here. But, I'm not just showing favoritism here or bias, but SJSU can keep up with this type of lineup. They have the size and the depth to keep up with it. I think Tim Miles has finally figured out the lineup to put out there with the Mountain West, and not even being dramatic. This is the perfect test to show it, because even if these guys lose in a close type of fashion, it'll show me that they can kind of hang with the rest of the big boys in the Mountain West.
And what was different about last year's team, and we know that SJSU with Boise and San Diego State, they came so close last year, even with UNLV. That was kind of a team, for the most part, that was inexperienced. They had 7 freshmen. MJ Amy didn't really get to have his exposure towards, that type of physicality. This is an experienced group. I mean, Donovan Yap, Josh Aduje, Will McClendon, Day Hall. These are all upperclassmen. Latrell Davis got a taste of it last year. These are guys that have been around the block. A lot of these guys have played in the Mountain West. They're used to the altitudes. That's why the New Mexico game, in hindsight now, is not much of a surprise. And here we go again. Rob Viola, like I was saying earlier, I think he's going to be due for a breakout game. That game 2 years ago when SJSU beat Boise State, he was a big part of that. Remember Ibrahima Diallo and Rob Viola, they were just controlling the glass like crazy. Like the rebound,
they were doing that for every single game too.
Yeah. Like rebound battle in this match in particular on Saturday afternoon might dictate the game, because if the Spartans are getting second chance opportunities, and you're limiting a guy like Tyson Degenhardt and others, that would definitely be a plus. And the 3-point shooting as well, I think, will be a big one as well. Yeah. When is it not? But Boise State's got themselves some 3-point shooters. Much better 3-point shooting team than last year, I feel like.
Yeah, and in this case, and I think you kind of look at Boise's lineup and just how big they are, you kind of worry about that. But that's the beauty of having Sadadrian Hall in that lineup. If Viola's struggling with Degenhardt, they can just kind of mix and match with Omar Stanley. And they still got Andrew Meadow there, man, who's all of a sudden becoming an emerging star in the Mountain West too. So they're kind of like in this up and rising kind of boat. And I think the big men for SJSU are going to be put to the test too. I wouldn't be surprised if Ngana gets some minutes off the bench. I know he's been a big part too.
Former Boise State Bronco.
Oh, that's true. Right before
he committed there.
In his first year, right? His freshman
then he
year?
went to Seton Hall, didn't play there, and now he's here. So
that's a heck of a resume for him, man.
Yeah. So personal games all around.
Yeah, I can't wait for just a big man type of game because I haven't seen it. I feel like we're going to see like old school type of basketball. And I know we've been talking about it when it comes to NBA, but we've just been seeing 3 points and 3-pointers being chucked. But right here, we're going to see, man, and I know you don't want to hear it from me, but we need to see Leon Rice and Tim Miles just go at it. Like two masterminds just go back and forth, dude. Two guys who are always just as emotional on the players on the sideline.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I'm not being dramatic when I say I feel like these two teams are like kind of evenly matched, just from a depth type of standpoint. I mean, really, their Boise State's lineup is like just so starter heavy, like
right.
That, and SJSU kind of has a better bench than them.
Yeah, and we'll see how Latrell contributes to a game like this, right? I mean, he's the sixth man on this team now. If he drops like anywhere from 15 to 20 this game.
Yap is due, man. He's really overdue.
He is overdue. And, he's going to be the playmaker in all this, kind of like the Alvaro Cardenas of this team now, even though he's not doing it too much on the scoreboard. But in a way, he doesn't necessarily need to, right? So when you got all these other pieces. But that's going to be a fun one. And we can't wait to bring that one on the air this Saturday at 2 p.m. Jonathan and I will be on these very airways, 90.5 KSJS, KSJS.org. Yeah, we got the preseason player of the year and Tyson Degenhart coming into town, and obviously former Spartan guard Alvaro Cardenas back in San Jose for the first time on the other side, which obviously the storylines will be flying in a game like that, and we hope the game delivers as well.
Yeah, seriously. Hopefully it's not like a blowout on either side. I can't wait for just another crazy close game. 2 p.m. is a weird time, but
it is a weird time.
Let's do it.
Hey, we're all here for it. Doesn't matter what time. They're gonna play the game, and we just hope it delivers. But I do want to get into revisit all the Mountain West teams as a whole now that we've gotten about a 10 to 12 game sample size on all these teams now. Like, we kind of know, in a way, in some capacity, about these teams. Like, I know you've been watching a lot of these teams, Jonathan. You've probably seen some more teams on your television screen more than others compared to me. And just overall, I mean, before we get into, just what these teams are all about and, who's been impressing you the most, just overall, the non-conference for the Mountain West, I thought there were some missed opportunities, but they did score some big wins.
Yeah.
I mean, San Diego State beating Houston is a big one.
That's crazy, man.
On a neutral. Like, that win will be the best win of the conference. I know Boise State got a win over St. Mary's. Utah State went into Moraga, like true road game fashion in St. Mary's. I know that Boise State game was in Idaho Falls, but still, that's a neutral. That was a true road game for Utah State.
Yeah, they played two big men all of a sudden. I don't know if that threw St. Mary's off, but that was just surprising to see.
Yeah.
But, dude, those guys, all of us, Utah State, like, you can put, like, a new coach every single year. It doesn't matter. They're going to come back and beat Utah State,
they're just unbelievable
man.
now. We already know San Diego State, like, they're, like, the culture with Dutcher will always be there. Is Utah State just gonna be one of these programs now?
It's crazy. It's so unique though because it's like it's cold. It's not really culture because it's like new every single year. This is like the third or fourth year in a row that's happening, and it's like I don't know, but there's this aura about them that I really love, man. Because
me too.
They scare other teams for sure, and they just beat St. Mary's. Like that's a big win, and I'm looking. Their first conference game is going to be San Diego State right away,
Unreal. Dude. And those teams don't like each other.
This Saturday at 3 p.m. at San Diego.
That's at Viejas. Yeah, all these were going to be on. There's no more neutral site malarkey now.
So that's crazy. The fact that basically the top two teams, record-wise in the Mountain West, are going head-to-head here.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, Utah State had the best overall record. And I know some records may be skewed because some teams had tougher schedules than others, but Utah State 11-1. Their one loss was a home loss at the Spectrum Center to UC San Diego, which is a good team in the Big West.
All right.
But we talked about their resume. It's as good as San Diego State's, if not anybody's in the conference. And I mean, when you got Falslev and like
Martinez,
an impressive sophomore,
well.
Martinez looks like an NBA guy, if you ask me. And like, it's one of these things, like Jonathan, we talked about this team during the preseason, and it's like Jared Calhoun, Utah State head coach. he just could just roll like 8 bodies with like
seriously
6'8" dudes. Like they can guard, they can defend. Like on a fast break, they're lethal. Like they're not going to screw it up. Like that is a team I don't want to play at Utah State. And if they come on the road, they can win games. Like because they can guard.
Yeah. And, I mean, St. Mary's and Moraga, it gets packed over there, man. Those fans actually show out like an NBA game.
Yeah.
And Utah State literally went over there and beat them. I mean, only one loss. And we'll see if they're like, I mean, I already think they're heavyweights, but we'll see if they can actually, overcome that mountain and beat San Diego State. That'll mess up San Diego State and Mountain West rankings, but
my guess is
they'll start eating each other alive.
I don't think they're going to win at Viejas, personally. There's just, you're not going to win in that building. We're going to see it again where everyone's going to cannibalize each other in their, like,
San Diego State's young for, like, I don't know. They just seem like very different this year, for their standards.
I will say this, though. They could score better than their past 2 years.
You think so?
Yes.
Yeah,
definitely.
Maybe.
Their defense might be not as, lethal as it was the past 2 years, but this team can score better, I feel like. Because you got, like, Magoon Guath and who's really turned it into, like...
That guy's huge, dude. That's huge. All. Like, he's just a big guy who can move a little bit.
And, like, I like their guards quite a bit. Like, they haven't even been healthy either. Like, Reese Waters hasn't played a game this year. Miles Bird has been in and out of the lineup. I mean, they have one home loss this year. That's at Gonzaga, San Diego State. And I imagine that's probably their only home loss. Maybe they'll drop one home game to, like, some team that catches fire. I mean, everybody's got a tough schedule.
Yeah, but Utah State and Boise State as their first conference games. That sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, this situation does matter, though, and that is tough. Utah State's got at San Diego State, at Nevada. Wouldn't it shock me if they go 0-2 and everyone hits the panic button on them?
On San Diego State?
Or Utah State.
Oh, okay. Maybe. Yeah, I can see it. But I don't know. I can see them having that same type of run that they had last year with an entirely different
where they
team.
just steal a bunch of games on the road. I mean, wouldn't it shock me? They won in some bizarre ways last year. It was next level silly. I mean, so is that kind of like is that like the tier 1 teams like in this thing? Like it's Utah State, San Diego State. You can maybe make an argument for Boise State, even though I don't think they are as good as they were as people projected them in the preseason. But they're another team. They're not going to lose a lot of games at home. What's your thoughts on the Broncos here? Because they were my preseason pick to win the regular season.
They were my pick, and I think I'm not going to take it back. They're still I'm still going to stick with them too. And the Wolfpack, I'm still pretty high on them too. I know I was talking them up. I just think they had a tough non-con schedule.
They did.
But we'll talk about them later. I was going to ask you about the Lobos too. Because I still have Boise and the Wolfpack as my favorites, but the Lobos 10-3. I mean, these guys. I can't really put my finger on them. Like,
the jury's still out on them, I think.
Are they mid, in the Mountain West, or at that 4 or 5 range? Or are they top dogs like Boise State, San Diego, and Utah? Because I have those guys on their own realm. And New Mexico, for some reason, I can't put my finger on them.
Well, I think the problem is that they're going to be so, it's going to come to a point where the other guys are going to have to help because you can't have Donovan Dent dropping 30 every night.
Yeah, the rest of these guys are there for, defense. I know Amzio can get in the paint, but, if he has a bad day and Dent does, he had 40 points there last time out. Dude, he's not going to do that all the time.
Yeah.
Especially not in conference games. He's not going to be scoring 30 points
and especially on the road.
Yeah.
There's going to be games because they're college kids. These environments and the altitudes are going to, even though some of these guys are going to be pros, it's college basketball. And these environments are real. And quite honestly, they're gonna struggle in some situations. So if they're gonna rely on Dent to just take them to the promised land how they were,
but he
it's
can
not gonna
kind of
work.
do it though.
He can do it
in
some games. But if you think you're gonna ride this out till March, it won't be sustainable.
And the reason I say that is just because of how he's played all season, and just we saw it already in a conference game against us. I mean, his last minute shot basically ended the game against SJSU in the pit. So.
Yeah.
Donovan Dent, man, he's capable of doing it. He's one of those guys. He's a wrecking machine. And that's probably why I'm so high on them and the Wolfpack too. But I just like them because of their depth. But yeah,
their best win, I would say in the non-con was home versus VCU. That's a really good win, and that was a game where he had to drop 40
Donovan Dent.
Yeah. And Amziel and Junior Joseph had 15 each.
See, but that's the thing. Like, they're not going to, Amziel and Junior Joseph aren't going to do that all the time.
And so that
especially
means,
in the Mountain West, where like we've been saying it like all year, just big men are kind of rule the Mountain West. So I don't think they're going to be scoring 15 a night along with Donovan Dent producing. You know what I mean?
We'll get into another team, but 6 bench points in that game for them.
Yeah.
Like, you got to have more from your bench production. And that was my whole deal for them, because True Washington was a guy coming off the bench last year for them, and he'd kind of give him that bench boost. Now he's a starter.
Yeah.
So you kind of got to get it from somebody else now. So that is going to be tough, but how many teams are going to win at the pit? Maybe 1 or 2.
Oh, man, we almost did.
I know.
It's crazy.
I think, honestly, it wouldn't shock me if more teams win at the pit this year than
I think
years.
that was just like I think that was a wake-up call to them, man. I think they'll still get theirs at home at least.
Fair enough. Colorado State had 7-5 overall season. This is the team I think that will take some regression. Like, you're going to start to see it. I will say this, some games they have, been impressive. Like, when they've gotten like some step up in competition, they have delivered. But they also have a really bad loss to UC Riverside at home. Like, that is going to really stick out when we come to March timeframe. Because I do think they're capable of scoring some big wins, but if they're floating around the bubble, that UC Riverside game that loss is going to come back to bite them. Isaiah Stevens at this portion of the year, you're going to really miss him. 15 points per game and 11 assists per game, like, that just can't be replaced. I do think Nick Clifford is a first-round pick in the NBA next year.
First round?
Yeah.
That's insane.
I personally think so. Like, he's perfect for the NBA.
He's a good all-around player, but he's not what, like, I would agree with you in like what he brings to the table, but like he's not what Colorado State needs from like an offensive standpoint right now, because he just seems like a defensive specialist. I mean, I saw he had 12 rebounds. Like, I saw he had like 12 rebounds in that last game against the Wolfpack.
They won that game.
Yeah, they won by 2. That's crazy. Wolfpack, man, that game I wasn't expecting, but
no.
And he was like one of the stars there. He had a double-double, 12 points, 16 rebounds, but I don't know. I don't think he can kind of do this all the time. And who's behind him? You can't tell me anybody else like who's behind him there.
Jalen Lake's been good for 14 a game, but hey, bro. I'll tell you what. Can I tell you who the X factor is for their team in a way? Kyan Evans.
I knew you were going to say that
because he's the point guard.
Yeah,
he's their point guard.
He's Isaiah Stevens' backup, dude.
He was. Now I'll tell you what. We saw them.
I still think of him as that.
So we were in Vegas last year for SJSU versus Colorado State, and Nico Medved like went deep in the archives with this guy, and we're like, okay,
I had him in my lineup.
Yeah, okay, you had him, you were prepared for him, but like he was a guy that just wasn't getting minutes all year. Maybe that was just kind of like a passing the torch moment, if you will. There,
yeah, sure, just getting that type of experience in a big time environment. It's paying off. I mean, he had 16 points alongside Nick Clifford and that win over the Wolfpack, which I just can't, just saying that out loud, I can't believe that actually happened.
Yeah.
It was in Reno, too.
It was in Reno.
Dude, come on, man.
True road game. So I think Colorado State, they're going to be due for some regression in these games, because I think you're going to see they were a bad road team last year, and they still finished 6th in the league. But I think there's going to be some teams that are going to beat them in Fort Collins, because they were like undefeated. They actually had one of the best home records last year.
Yeah, I remember.
And
these guys were top in the country at one point.
Yeah,
somehow before conference play started.
It was crazy, right? They were top 15 in America, and I think they will be vulnerable in some spots at home. Like they're going to be beatable at home. And they're not going to be that won't be their strength how it was last year. I feel like
this will be like one of their premier wins. I feel like this Wolfpack win.
Yeah,
it's just something that was like a classic Wolfpack loss, if anything.
Right, because that was a game where Nevada just didn't play good, and Colorado State controlled it, and they had that late surge, and it was just too little, too late. Speaking of the Wolfpack, I know you're very high on this team.
I am. I still am.
You got your Cal Poly transfer, Kobe Sanders. You got the good forwards and Nick Davidson and Trey Coleman. They got 7th-year senior KJ Himes, who just
he's been there longer than Alfred, or just as long as him actually.
That's unreal.
I remember seeing that.
That's unreal. I'll let you lead the way here because you're so high on the Wolfpack this year. That home loss versus Colorado State won't do you any help on the resume, which means you're gonna have to win some road games.
No, which sucks because they had such a great non-com, but unfortunately, man, this kind of seemed like the game. Wolfpack kind of do this every year. They had a great backcourt last year as well with Lucas and Blackshear, but obviously they're not here anymore. And they replaced it, I think, with some great guys. And they added it with Kobe Sanders and to go along with Nick Davidson and Coleman, Brendan Love all of a sudden. But those guys just didn't show up in the last game, like all those guys I just mentioned. I mean, Xavier Dussel is kind of being like, I compare him to Donovan Yap, if you will. Like he had 13 minutes, had 0 points in that game with Colorado State. So right now they're just not meshing well, I would say, altogether. But they've had some impressive wins, and these guys are just as deep as any team here in the Mountain West. And, you know, this was a bad loss for them, but they're going to come back here, and they have, like, these starters, like, that's not it for them, man. Like, all those guys I named you can be all Mountain West players. And then to add on that, I mean, you mentioned KJ Himes. He's a seventh-year senior, dude. He's coming off the bench. Tyler Rollison knows what he's doing. He's been there for a while. So is Daniel Foster. So I have high hopes for them, and I don't know, man. I think Steve is also kind of like, not, I wouldn't say in the hot seat, but I think Wolfpack.
No, he's got to get it done.
They have some expectations.
They have expectations.
Yeah.
They have to make the NCAA tournament when you got this type of roster.
Yeah.
And we know that they're forking out for it, and you know the expectations are there. And especially the way things ended last year when you're up 20 plus versus Dayton in the first round of the NCAA tournament and you lose the game somehow in the second half. You know, that stuff will carry over.
They beat VCU too earlier.
They beat VCU,
season.
right?
Yeah.
That was on the neutral.
But then they lost to LMU, like a week later.
So that's what I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's like
you can see that
Nevada.
for both Vegas teams, right?
Yeah, actually.
I mean, that's the whole thing. Like Alfred and the Wolfpack are going to score some big wins, but also wouldn't shock me if they have a couple clunkers. Where you're, like
they'll
head
beat
scratchers.
Boise State and then they'll maybe lose to SJ or lose to
like Fresno
Air Force or something on an off night, and it's like what?
Well, speaking of a team that's been doing that, I would say since in the Kevin Kruger era, UNLV, the Rebels, and this is still a team in some ways I just still can't figure out, and I don't think, who knows, maybe we'll never figure them out because with their 6-5 record,
dude,
I'm shocked they actually didn't beat a heavyweight come conference non-conference, because they do this every year. Like they beat Creighton last year and they didn't really have that signature win. They lost by a point to Dayton in a true road game, so I guess that could have been the spot. But man, I don't want to say this, but is Kruger kind of on the hot seat here? Like, does he have to make a March Madness to an NCAA tournament bid to like really keep the train rolling here, or what's going on there? Because I swear, man, you got like a 5-star talent in Deedon Thomas, and like they got some really good pieces, but man, they just can't really like put it together like on like consistently every night.
Yeah, and I think yes and no. I think two things could be true at the same time. I mean, I'm looking at Deedon Thomas, and he was kind of more so like somebody who he started with UNLV. He's not a transfer or anything. He started with them as a freshman.
He's a Vegas kid.
Yeah, so like I'm looking at the rest of this team. I mean, like Jalen Hill's supposed to be that guy. I mean, he hasn't really been performing as well. He had 7 points in their last game in that loss. So I'm just looking at other guys. I don't really think it all falls on the coach in this case. Like, he needs some talent in there. Like, comparing it to, like, I don't know, maybe Tim Miles last year. Like, I don't think this lineup is going to get it done. You said you don't know where to put your finger on him. I think I do, man. These guys are going to be bottom tier in the Mountain West. Like, I think their counterparts over there in Reno, like, are 10 times better than them. And if somehow Kruger can prove me wrong, then like good for him. God bless him. But these guys, I'm looking at them, just their lineup just start up and down. They're underperforming like in every which way. And except for Deedon Thomas, who I would imagine is going to remain loyal to the soil in UNLV for a while. But other than that, those other guys, like, I mean, Jalen Hill, I was expecting also to kind of have a big year, but
I will say this, Rob Whaley has only played 2 games this year.
Is he just...
I guess he's injured.
To be honest, I wasn't necessarily too high on him last year.
Yeah, but
I think he emerged as a guy because other injuries were happening.
That is true, but UNLV kind of turned the corner with his success in a way, right?
Sure, yeah.
So last year when they kind of got hot and were like, whoa, this like, and that's the thing with the Rebels. When they're
streaky, man.
They are so streaky. And here's the thing, like when they're playing their A game, we think that they could legitimately win 4 games in 4 days in the Mountain West tournament. Like they're capable
in the Mountain
of
West
that.
tournament. Yeah, sure.
They're capable of that.
They could be a low seed and like shock people for sure. But I still think they'll be a low seed in the Mountain West.
Yeah, and then they have their head scratchers like versus Air Force last year where they get blasted by 30. So the jury's still out on them. I think for sure they'll be a tough team to gauge every single night. I feel like. We talked about San Jose State. We think they're going to be a tough out every single home game. I feel like more competitive on the road. I think that would it shock us if they? I know we talked about SJSU already, but would it shock us if they have 10 conference wins like how they did 2 years ago when
10?
and how they won at Colorado State, nearly won at Boise? Like, I feel like they're capable with their experience that they can steal some road games this year. Can they finally win at Fresno? They've never done that in the Tim Miles era. I know that's probably circled on the calendar. I feel like this team could win on the road, and I think when the heavyweights come to town, they will be a tough out every night, and I think they are more than capable of taking care of the bottom feeders, the Fresnos, the Air Forces, the Wyomings at home.
I agree. I don't know about 10 wins, maybe just a game or 2 less.
Okay.
But I think they're at that tier already. They can definitely beat those bottom tier type of teams, like especially on the road, like the Fresnos and Air Forces. Wyoming, for some reason, those guys I just like them. Like I don't want to like say like, oh, these guys is like an automatic dub. Like, nah. I think Wyoming can really take it to some of these teams. I know we're not talking about them, but still, like,
no, we could talk about them.
But I'm just saying, like, in terms of like SJSU, that's not like one of those bottom tier teams that they can just be like, oh, like this is gonna be an easy type of dub, especially not in their own house over there in Wyoming.
Let's talk about Wyoming, because we're on the same page with San Jose State as far as their tier, like right around the middle, and tough out every night, like we said.
Yeah,
but
so every team.
Wyoming could quite honestly be in that same tier in a way. Can they get enough offense? That maybe remains a question in a way, because we talked about this team coming into the year, Jonathan, like, who is going to be the scorer? Because Sundance Wicks, when I talked to him at Media Days, didn't even know who the number 1 scorer. He says it could be Kobe Newton, it could be Obi Agbeem, like Cole Henry, like their forward from Northern Iowa. Like, it could be anybody. They kind of played that obscure style in a way, and Kobe Newton had like a big game for them where he goes 6 for 6 from 3 in a game on the West Coast in California, Southern California. They play in Fullerton, I believe. But Obi Agbeem seems to be the guy. He's averaging 19 a game, which is insane. Like, whoa. Like, this is a guy that's just bursting onto the scene. I will say this. When teams come in, if a team is coming in and playing the first game of their road trip in Wyoming, they got every chance to beat them. Because when you're going, especially the West Coast teams, when you're going to sea level to 7,000 feet, you're going to feel it. And you're going to feel it in game, versus if you maybe go to a Utah State or a Boise, and then the second game of the road trip, you're in Wyoming, maybe the road team could be a little bit more accustomed to that. But regardless, the altitude, it's the biggest altitude advantage in the league. And I think that could play a factor in all of this. I do have my questions with them on the road, because I do think they will be overwhelmed in these spots.
Thankfully for them, their first 2 conference games, or their second and third conference games, they're going to be at home. Okay. And the first one's against the Wolfpack.
Dangerous game.
At 1 p.m. That's a dangerous game for the Wolfpack, unfortunately. And Ogbeam, 18 points a game is actually pretty crazy. So I'm excited to see what they're going to be made of here. I mean, they only lost by 3 to Utah State. So that's not like
that was a road game for them. Amazing, right?
And
like,
I mean, they only lost by 3 to a couple teams. I mean, they only lost by 1 to South Dakota. They lost by 3 to LMU. In terms of their standards, that's actually like really good. So I'm excited to see what they're going to be able to bring to the table. And Nevada, if I'm them, I would be a little bit nervous. Yeah, I'd be a little bit worried starting off 0-2, especially with Wyoming kind of being red hot for their standards. They're 7-5, and it's looking a lot better than last year when I couldn't even like tell you a guy who was playing for them.
Yeah, because they had all those Division II guys last year. Sundance Wicks is a great coach, man.
A local man too.
Local too. Like that. You want to talk about a guy that lives and breathes Laramie, Wyoming? That's the guy. Like, that's the guy that is ecstatic to have the Wyoming job. And when you talk to him, you got the personality guy.
He's full of life. I do like that.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Wyoming. And here's the thing, because with that Wyoming gig, it's one of those things like you can't. I mean, some guys, like, you have to love to be in Laramie, Wyoming.
I guess, yeah.
You really do, because it's just one of those places. There's not a lot to do. It's cold. It seems like year round.
Bears.
Yeah, like Sundance Wicks is the guy for the job. Linder did a great job over there for a long time. He got into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, that's true.
A few years ago, and now he's at Texas Tech, and I just think Coach Wicks is the perfect fit over there. We could combine the last two teams here, Fresno State and Air Force, kind of in the same tier, because I think that's kind of where they are. I do think Fresno is a couple wins better than Air Force.
Sure.
Like, Fresno will win more games at home than Air Force, because the Save Mart Center, I guess you can say, is the quote-unquote sleeping spot as well in the conference. And, there might be a game where, Fresno comes to life and they shoot a bunch of threes, but I don't know. I could say the same about Air Force. I mean, these are the two bottom feeders, I feel like, and it's going to be one of these nights where for them to win, they're going to have to shoot it lights out, and the other team is not going to have to play good. And we've seen that with Air Force, where they can shoot the lights out and they can get a Bo Becker off the bench that goes like 5 for 5 from deep. And all of a sudden, like, you're in a rock fight with them in the second half and it's tied. Like, Air Force and Fresno kind of in the same tier with me. Like, they're going to have to play perfect on these nights to win.
Yeah, like near perfect. And I feel like both of them, for even at home, I'll give like Air Force a pass. I keep saying it. They just don't have too many big men on their roster. And they're kind of like, you live by the three, die by the three type of game all the time. But Fresno State, man, I don't know, dude. These guys are kind of atrociously kind of bad to some extent. I think they might be just as bad as
they got all
Air
those
Force. Like, they might be as bad as Air Force and SJSU were last year in terms of conference. Like, these guys,
they'll be battling for last.
Might get like 2 or 3 wins in the conference. Yeah. Like, no joke.
And we should mention with Fresno State is that so they got Vance Wahlberg, first year head coach. He's very familiar with the Fresno area. And this is basically an entire junior college roster.
Seriously.
Like, all junior college guys, minus like 2 dudes. And Jalen Weaver's one of the returners.
He's doing an okay job.
He's their fourth leading scorer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, sure, they could kind of get it from a plethora of guys. To me, I think the most talented guy is Amar Aguilar, and he was like tearing it up like to start the year.
Yeah.
And now he's coming off the bench for.
Yeah, he got 6 minutes the last game out against the Toreros.
Which is interesting. So I don't really know what's going on.
They're just like
Fresno.
maybe just playing, tinkering with the lineup. There's only so much you can do with the team who's 4-7. Like, just being flat out honest about it.
Yeah, and I know they played in like a double overtime thriller this year, like in Palm Springs, and like they've
lost to Bakersfield.
Yeah, and they've lost to Santa Barbara. They don't have the greatest of losses, and they've already played San Diego State.
Yeah, they have. They got blown out by 22.
Yeah,
that's not cool.
And that game was in the Save Mart Center as well. So that's where we're at with those teams. But yeah, I mean, I will say, so now that you've seen these teams, before we close up this entire segment, I wanted to do an extended college basketball segment.
Let's do it.
Because we were long overdue for one. But 12 to 13 games in now. I know we had one conference game already start, 1 to 2 already start. Is your stance still remain the same from the preseason? Did you have Nevada winning the regular season?
I'm remembering now. I think I did pick the Wolfpack.
You did pick. Yeah. I picked Boise State, and I'm actually going to flip my pick.
Oh, boy. Where's Lewis? I need him to get his sticky notes and just jot it down. I hope he's listening.
I personally think it's going to be San Diego State.
What? Get out of here.
Yeah.
Just the boring old pick, huh? The Dutch pick.
It's
Flying
boring.
Dutchman.
It's a boring pick, but I think, like I say, the culture and that home court advantage, and I think they can score better this year.
You think regular season champs or the tournament, like whole thing?
I have to see the tournament bracket when we get there, but I will I will change the pick and say regular season. Add Boise State to start. I think San Diego State will be your regular season champion. You still have Nevada?
I'm honestly more so leaning towards Boise, just scheduling wise. Like, I think they can kind of take care of some teams. These other teams are kind of scary, but Yeah, I would still say Boise and like Nevada as my second teams.
Okay.
But if I'm gonna flip, I'm gonna flip towards the Cardenas.
You honestly can make an argument for a lot of teams.
Yeah, I mean we can for sure. But they're both. I mean they're still talented to an extent. I just feel like now the Mountain West is more so top heavy than they were like last year when it was like, the top
like
6 can kind of destroy anybody.
Yeah, it is a little bit more top heavy, and I think we could admit it's a little bit less talented than last year. Big picture wise, who's kind of like your number one team in America right now?
Just in America?
Yeah.
Can you put me on the spot right now?
I'll go first then. I think it's Auburn.
Oh, you're gross, dude. That's so gross.
I love watching Auburn.
I don't. They're just so boring.
Like the SEC, like we talked about this last week on the show. Like the SEC might get like 11 teams in the NCAA tournament, and I know a lot of people are not going to like it, but that league is so good, dude. That league is so good this year.
They're killing already, man.
Yeah.
Memphis got killed by who? Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Dude, Mississippi State is not even like all that, man.
They're like the 11 best team.
SEC is just like that. Like Memphis found out the hard way.
Yeah, and no one's going to win at the Jungle in Auburn. And like they got first team, they're gonna have a first team All-American in Janai Broome. They might have the Wooden Award winner with him. We talked about him, like Lewis was saying last week. Oh, he was injured. Well, he actually didn't miss any time with injury, which is a plus for them.
Oh,
and like they could literally go like 9 players deep, that team. Like they got JP Pegues like coming over from Furman, who's like doesn't sometimes even crack their rotation in some of these games, and he can go off for 20.
That's like, gross, dude.
That team is unreal, and they got a Hall of Fame coach in Bruce Pearl. I think with them and Iowa State, those are the 2 best teams. Do you tend to agree there?
I just don't like Auburn too much, to be honest, and I don't know. I don't think they can get it done. I don't like any of these teams. I was pretty high.
You don't want to make a judgment on them yet?
I don't even like any of the top 5, to be honest. Tennessee is so fake, man. Like the 11-0
they
so
do this
fraudulent.
every year, right?
They do, but I just don't even believe in them just from any type of like star standpoint. These guys, I mean, they have Norfolk State coming up next. Like these guys are fake.
You gotta love the scheduling for some of these teams, right? It's kind of ridiculous.
Man, mesh wise, all together, I'm gonna say Iowa State is my safe pick.
Okay.
But I do like Florida a lot.
Okay, I like that.
I really like Florida a lot. Like they're a good like starting 5 unit. Like they have a true big men too. Like that's kind of rare, especially like in their conference.
And
team.
We all know when the NCAA tournament rolls around, you need elite guard play. And
that's true.
Those guards are really good.
But it's just like I need to see them do this against like
top tier talent.
Right. That's
in the SEC, and you'll learn you'll have a realistic answer for them in February too.
Yeah, especially since Miami's falling apart, I need the other Florida team to show up.
Well, yeah, Miami. Coach Larinaga just stepped down today.
I would too, man. No, I wouldn't actually.
Well, you want to know? I actually broke this news to you before the show, and so Miami is 4-8. They're 2 years removed from their Final Four run with Larinaga, and he steps down. Like he's already getting up there in age, but they were 4-8. Like they had losses to like Charleston Southern and like some really bad teams. Like
they
they're
lost
paying
some
off.
Horrible teams. Yeah.
Yeah. They've been non-competitive in like their very minimal games of ACC, and he just stepped down. And he basically said,
"I'm out of here, dude."
He basically said in so many words like, "I'm exhausted," and like commitment, like, and he's all like, "You have to have 100% commitment." And like, I feel like if you talk to any player, you talk to any coach, but the coaches they never get an off season. They really don't, especially in this day and age, right?
How old is he? Do you know?
North of 70.
Wow. Okay, maybe that's the problem too. No offense.
Yeah, and can I tell you what too? He also said at his press conference, like immediately after, that NIL has to play an impact in it.
Well, sure.
And I'll tell you what, we've seen a lot of the older coaches.
Just not adapt.
They just haven't been able to adapt.
Yeah, and Patino's been doing it his whole life, so it doesn't matter.
Exactly. And don't get me wrong, NIL and all that stuff has leveled the playing field because we all know the Alabamas and all those teams have been doing this for decades. But he said when they went to the Final Four 2 years ago, he kind of thought he was going to retain his whole team, and 8 dudes from the Final Four team hit the portal.
I mean, that's just how it is, though. Even back then, like, guys are going to make the most of their opportunity. You can't adapt, and I don't know, that sucks. Like, what more can, especially in a conference like that, like, sorry for Miami, but you kind of held to some standards over there. So hopefully they find a coach that can actually bring some more talent to Miami because I mean, I know they're not the same tier right now, but like FAU in Florida, you know, they're schools that have been successful the last couple of years too, and you know, they bring in like international talent, you know, especially FAU, man. Those guys have like players from 8 different countries.
Yeah.
So like there really shouldn't be an excuse for a top really national market team in Miami to you know, not being able to get guys from NIL. Like you have a bunch of guys who are very known who have graduated from Miami. Like you're a top school. You should just bring in like stars and be competitive year in and year out, as far as I'm concerned.
So 75 years old, Jim Larinaga is, I think.
Oh my goodness.
So we had the
Tom
Virginia.
Coughlin.
We had the Virginia coach Tony Bennett step down
Yeah, but
like
that
a
guy
week
sucks.
before. I know, but like because he would ugly up the games on defense.
No, but I just mean like he's young and he just gave up on his team like a week before the season started.
And he kind of used the NIL stuff as an excuse. In
Whatever,
a way.
yeah.
Like how because a lot of these guys just don't want to adapt, right? And you know, it's like we said, it levels the playing field. But how good Jim Larinaga will be? He'll be in the Hall of Fame because not only did he take Miami to a Final Four, but early in his career, he took George Mason of all teams to a Final Four. Is that incredible?
Yeah,
that's unreal. So and you know it. You know when
that
if a
takes
team
real
is,
coaching.
if a coach is stepping down mid-season, you know there's something wrong. I will just say that.
Yeah. Well, like you said, the losses you've already mentioned out. Like, dude, those are some ugly losses to have for Miami.
Yeah, and they'll probably be a bottom.
Not even
feeder in the
SJSU would lose
ACC.
to certain schools that they've lost to.
Yeah. There's a major red flag down there in Coral Gables. I will say that.